welcome everyone to the Predictive Playbook. This is Manny's Irish Pub. I'm here with Tony Finn and Jesse Schul. Regretfully, I'm having a bit of an addiction problem now that the NBA is done, and I have a big void in my life. But if there's a guy on the planet that can help me fill voids and addictions, it's my good friend and pal Tony Finn. Welcome to the show, Tony. How are things going for you?
Well, I'm working on a long list right now. A long list of how you can fill your voids with ex and current Finn addictions.
Yeah. That topic right there makes for a good show, and we won't even be talking sports betting, I bet.
A little bit.
Jesse, how are you doing? I just had you on the one-on-one show, and it's a day where it's reflection, really. The NBA season is over. And sure, we wish there was a Game 7, but there's not. Giannis with 50 points was amazing. But there's a lot of stuff going on in baseball land, too. And let's start the show off with a kind of like an industry topic here that I know Tony Finn has been researching and studying and is very knowledgeable about. And that's the fact that the organization called Major League Baseball is actually a struggling one right now. And I think everybody would like to hear more about what you think is going on here.
Well, what I think, what I see in my orbit, in all my timeline, is that I've said this probably since the second or third week of the season. Although I felt like it was going to be one of those cloudy, dreary seasons in Major League Baseball. Coming off the 60-game sprint, the fact that we're still really living in a world of pandemic or panic, that there are places right now. I mean, people, they should know this, and I'm sure they do. Maybe those who are listening know that there's a couple places right now in the United States that have set records for new cases. In fact, records above and beyond before there was a vaccine last January. So and those are happening in places where there's no vaccine, or people are less apt to dive in and be administered the vaccine. And I don't want to get into that because then we get into other issues that are, whether you believe it's at my age. I've said this and I'll say it again. Regardless of whether I was 21 or whether I was 61, that I would be. I just think it's a win-win. So we'll just leave it at that. At 61, I surely feel like it's a win-win. Before the jury's out on the vaccine, I'll be dust anyway. I mean, I'm already dust, but I'll be real dust. So Major League Baseball has a history. They have a history going back to, early 1900s. The Black Sox scandal. Before the Black Sox, or right after the Black Sox scandal, they were, back then, when they bought baseballs, they actually hired guys. They hired employees that would roam the stadiums. A ball that went into the stadium got retrieved. Not like today, where they just throw balls around like they're pennies, and do things with it. But actually, they throw balls around when the inning's not even over. They're throwing it in the stands sometimes. These players, that's how free they feel with balls. Well, but it's not the way it was then, and it was because the equivalent, it was $3 a baseball in 1919, I think, 1920, and at $3 a baseball, which is equivalent of $100 for a baseball. So, of course, that product has become affordable, and baseball owns the baseball. They own Rawlings, so they make the baseball. They do what they want with the baseball, and they are in no way, shape, form responsible for telling us what they do with the baseball. Now, I would disagree with that legally, even some legal mumbo jumbo get thrown in, but long story short, they're also not publicly traded, so they don't have to tell us how much money they make, how much they lose. They don't have to tell us anything at all. It's not public knowledge. We estimate what a baseball team is worth by speaking to their vendors or going to the vendors that are publicly trading and knowing how much Major League Baseball has spent with them, and then we estimate how much they made off the products that they purchased. So, but it goes further than that. They let things go. Major League Baseball. If you follow sports like the three of us do, and I'm certain everyone spending time watching me does, because They know everything else, and they want a bad opinion or a crazy opinion on certain things. And baseball, the powers that are, these are billionaires like the rest of the sports. However, they're different. They're different than Mark Cuban, who you see right there with the players in the huddle, right behind them. You see those things, and he's really involved in the community and with his company. Hands-on guy, and it goes to football as well. You always see the charities. You always see them attempting, and I know that a lot of this is surface. It's surface animation. To be honest with you, a lot of the guys don't care as much as others, but they're making an attempt, and that's good enough for most. It's not that way. I'll even go to the officials. Do you know how hard it is for an NFL coach? An NFL coach is called, I can assure you, I know this person, they have called umpires, referees, stuff that you and I would probably put our bare knuckles up and say, it's on. It's on. If you're saying that, then it's on. And it takes an awful lot to get a flag, yet alone get kicked out of a game, as an NFL coach. In Major League Baseball, the umpires they believe they're part of the show, and we can go on and on about that. Joe West, Country Joe West, and his, while he's on mic, he's trying to sell his country and western albums from his website. It has gone far. It's gone way too far. And again, Major League Baseball, they will deny until it's impractical, improbable, and ridiculous to deny. And we go back to the steroid era. We go back to McGuire and Sosa, when everybody and their brother, knew that these guys were juicing, and you just don't go. Some of the home runs during that era were a leadoff hitter. We go to Arizona. We go anywhere we want to go, where they've upped their home runs by 20. Long story short, and so I don't go on and on about this, is that baseball did it again. This time, they knew substances. They knew that these pitchers were using these grip substances to get a better grip. And I'll make an argument that they should still allow that, because what it does is, with 100-mile-an-hour fastballs, and with the metrics we have now, 105-mile-an-hour fastballs, the metrics we have, I think it's pretty damn important that these pitchers have a good grip, because if you're sitting at the plate with a 105-mile-an-hour fastball coming at your head, you want the pitcher to have the best command he can have. Okay, so there's not going to be any 400 hitters. So we're not going to maybe the leading hitter in the league is going to hit 310 instead of 350. That, if you can put up with baseball being a chess game, which I call it a chess game, then it's okay that the three primary at bats are home run, strikeout, and walk. You don't have a lot of balls hit in play, and if you can get a lineup that does hit the ball in play, that's when you're going to be successful. Let's go back to 2015 Kansas City Royals. This team was nothing special. If they got to the sixth inning, though, they had three guys in the bullpen. It was game, set, match. If they had a lead at sixth inning, game, set, and match. But they hit the ball in play. They put the pressure on defense. Baseball now has put all the onus on these players, on these pitchers, and some of the pitchers that have spoke out, kind of been muffled and quieted, because they're right. Listen, you guys have let us do this. It's kind of a violation of the rules. It's like any law. We jaywalk. We go 9 miles an hour with a speed limit because we know most of the time we're not going to get a ticket unless it's 10 or more. And they just allow these kind of things. But then in mid-season, what happens is, they change canoes, or they change boats, because it's all of a sudden their brand is starting to be damaged. And time again, we could do an hour show on why baseball denies until it's time to step up and put a Band-Aid on the brand bruise. But then they're never accountable. They're never accountable. The entitlement that these baseball owners feel is light years. It's leaps, bounds, head and shoulders above the other billionaire owners in the other major sports, the big three, or even big four. Let's call it the big four. I think hockey does a good job as well, but you just don't see the things you see in a professional game. A company in baseball, the umpires believe they're the show and not the players. They're to be seen and not heard, in my opinion. I don't care about an umpire.
Can't agree more.
And for the most part, the company has to be, I'm accountable for whatever happens in this house. It doesn't matter whether I've done it or whether one of my kids has, or my wife, or a visitor. The buck stops with me. If I didn't prevent it, or I didn't stop it, or I didn't put some kind of proactive measures in place that it wouldn't happen, then it stops with me. And baseball's never been that way. And if you look, there's been polls taken, guys, and I'm going to end it with this. There's polls right now where people didn't watch. The polls they're taking, and I think I could name the universities and some of the groups that are doing these polls. Baseball's in trouble. People aren't watching baseball. They don't care about baseball because they don't like how it's played. They don't like how it's handled. They don't like the ups, the downs, the rules changes, the pandemic. Why the pandemic's part of this? Let's be honest with you. However, in a nutshell, the bottom line is that baseball's been in trouble for quite a few years. It elevated itself with Sosa and McGuire. It really did. If I could show you the numbers, the sales numbers, attendance numbers, some of the polls when those two were in that home run battle, it really elevated the game. It made it more front and center. It made it more public. It made it more touchable, if I can use that word. But what they're doing now, again, this is a situation where injuries. We saw it with the pandemic. Injuries with guys who all of a sudden couldn't use that grip, and they have to change everything they do mechanically to command the baseball. It's crap, guys. It's crap, and I don't know when it ends, but I know this much. The game that I grew up loving, the game that I grew up as an old man, I grew up with 3 channels, guys. We didn't have 400 channels. 3 channels. In the summer, I was never inside the house. We were out playing, couldn't afford much, but we were out playing with tape and a stick and a board, doing anything we could to play baseball. I grew up with Charles Finley being the owner of my team in Kansas City, the Kansas City A's, with guys like Catfish Hunter, Joe Rudy. And when they moved, of course, Charles Finley and the A's became public enemy, or Fin enemy number 1. You break your heart. That's what baseball. That's the history. I grew up in a time when civil rights was we had to be at the house at 7. We couldn't buy gasoline in a can. The Vietnam War was killing all of my friends' brothers, and it was a time that baseball was kind of it was my rescue. It was my refuge, and from a coin's, I could throw a coin or in a fountain or a rock and be at 18th and Vine in Kansas City at Municipal Stadium and watching Catfish Hunter, watching Joe Rudy, watching. I was a little young. Billy Martin, even Billy Martin was a Kansas City A's guy in the late 50s, but I'm not that quite damn old yet. But that was my team, and baseball has always resonated with me like that. And this is it's just, if you think Charles Finley was a showman, he was Barnum and Bailey. Man, he was the first team to have white shoes, gold gloves, have girl announcers. In the 60s, Charles Finley put a lady doing baseball color. He did anything to sell a buck. In 1967, I have a stub of the Beatles. He orchestrated and brought the Beatles to Municipal Auditorium, or Stadium there, at 18th and Vine. And it was $2. I think it was $2 to get in the cheapest tickets. And Charles was always overpriced. The ticket stubs I have from Kansas City A's games were $2 for grandstand pricing. In 1976, I would get into the new Royal Stadium, the Kauffman Stadium, for $1.50 in the bleachers. But all these things, if you want to know about my summers revolved around baseball when I was a kid. And to the most part, to this day, I still like summers because of the no time clock, or the no clock, that kind of thing, what baseball is. And I'm gone on way too long. Baseball's in trouble, and it's not up to us to save it. You and I and Jesse, the 3 of us, we're going to watch baseball, either because it's part of our livelihood or because we like it, love it, whatever the case may be. But the young kids, you don't see them playing baseball in the summer like we did outside. And unless it's a video game, they're not really interested. And that's everything screams that right now.
That's true, Tony. When I grew up, it was the same thing. You left school and you had an agreement. We didn't have cell phones. We barely had to use the telephone. But if you said you were going to be down at the Little League fields or this field, you were there, and you played until you knew it was time to go home for dinner. And you went home to have dinner, and then if it was the summertime, you had dinner, and then you went back out and you went to the swimming pool, or you played more ball. And now it's all sitting in front of a boob tube. And I do think that this generation coming up is missing what we enjoyed so much, and it's should be a little bit more balanced, I guess, is where I'm coming from. But
probably, yeah.
The part that has me burned up with baseball does go back to the steroid era, and honestly, anybody who knew anything about anything in sports knew that there was major juicing going on. You'd have to be, effing blind not to see what was going on. The growth of the players, the size of some players' heads, not to mention any names.
Canseco, and a home run off his head, just to mention Canseco.
Well, that's true, yeah. I mean, he benefited both ways there, defensively and offensively.
Yeah.
But, I didn't care. I didn't care that they were on the steroids, to tell you the truth. They made a choice to take them. They're dangerous as hell. And I just wanted to see a 550-foot home run.
Yeah.
Like everybody else, right? But the part that pissed me off and really got me, twerked, which you can't even imagine me being twerked, I know, because it takes a lot, is when Bud Selig in his almighty holiness, never sinned in my life talk, then in 2000, whatever it was, brought these guys to justice.
Yes.
After those guys helped him get the salary that he was then getting paid, and then he just, persecutes them.
Yes.
Throws him right under the bus at Congress, and then Congress, of course, has to investigate this. And what do some of those congressmen know about baseball to begin with? Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but that's the part that really irked me with Selig and Major League Baseball, because the owners were going like this. What's a steroid? My team would never take steroids.
John, I wrote an article that when Jackie Robinson was introduced into baseball, there were owners that actually on record as saying we didn't know that black players knew how to play baseball.
Yep.
There was been a Negro League for 100. It is amazing, and we know better than that. They knew that. Come on, the Kansas City Monarchs played right there in Municipal Stadium before the. I mean, that was Satchel Paige. It was. Listen, those guys weren't unknowns. Yes, they were. Even then, they were big names.
Yep. Yeah. Who's the Mickey Mantle? I love this story too. That he. There was an African American on the roster. I think he was the backup catcher to Yogi Berra, if that helps you identify his name. But he wasn't allowed to eat in some of the restaurants when they were on the road.
Yeah.
So, and this poor guy would go into the bus and eat by himself. Well, Mickey Mantle made a point never to let that happen again. And when it did happen, instead of causing a scene in the restaurant, he would just take his meal out to the bus and join them. So he wasn't eating alone. And I think, it's one of my favorite stories of all the stories about Mickey Mantle, that he, had such a tremendous, big heart. And, he could also drink a lot, too, from what they say.
One of my favorite parts about Mickey and Billy.
Well, go ahead and tell it.
No, I mean, those guys were, those are the warriors. Those are the guys that, listen, I know that that's politically incorrect to say, it's politically incorrect to support, but I mean, I'm from an immigrant family, and I'm if you were old enough to walk on Sundays, you were joining in with the vodka and the shot, or you were getting punished. Essentially, you were going to get punished. Now, I'm not saying any family should bring anybody up like that, but there's something about that. Something about traditions like that and things that create camaraderie. And Mickey Mantle, Billy Martin, that whole group. Going back, Babe Ruth may have been a little excessive. But I don't know that Babe Ruth. Truthfully, I'm not sure Babe Ruth would be I'm not sure he would be that star he is today. I'm certain. I'm guessing he would be probably. But long story short is, Babe could pitch and hit, and I think we're seeing with Ohtani that that's not the way baseball's played anymore. It's so high tech. The fact that guys that never threw 100 can throw, never reached 94, can throw 100 now simply with how you grip the ball or a substance or a technique that they didn't have then. That's evolution. That's just change. As Bob Dylan said, the times are changing. So, and they are changing. It doesn't mean, as you described, John, that these owners can basically throw these guys under the bus. The truth is that these players, the big players, are their partners. And if you haven't realized that LeBron James is the boss of the Lakers, he's the coach of the Lakers. He's not the best player. He makes all the decisions, in truth. He makes, and Cleveland finally realized that. The GM finally realized that when they brought him back and they won a championship. Before that, it's not, you're not making these calls. Well, he is making those calls. If you don't think Aaron Rodgers is the boss in Green Bay, then you're mistaken. He's the boss. He's going to tell you what he's going to do, and if you're not going to be along with him, then he's not going to be with you. Patrick Mahomes, a young 25-year-old, let me assure you, $500 million later, he's the boss. What he wants, Patrick's going to get. And that's part of the partnership. You joined it. You signed on to it. Green Bay signed on to that with Aaron Rodgers, and for good reason. Aaron Rodgers, wasn't very well liked because he was replacing the great Brett Favre, right? That was a difficult transition. Yep. So it's the things that we have to. It's the things that go along with those that sometimes I laugh at. And you mentioned you can't throw your partner, the guy that made you part of your $1 billion, under the bus when it's convenient. It just doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way with my family. It doesn't work that way with my friends. It doesn't work that way with my neighbors who I barely know. They're part of my community. They're part of my block, and I got their back till they give me a reason not to, and I get really tired of all that. That is if you want a definition of blasphemy, that's about as accurate as it comes.
Yeah. Jesse, you have anything you want to add?
Come on, Jesse.
Well, they say art imitates life, I guess.
That's true.
Tony gave a good speech about how Major League Baseball is in trouble, but perhaps society as a whole is in trouble with the shrinking attention spans. You're familiar with the term TLDR, Tony?
I think we just lost him.
Well, TLDR,
oh,
if you ever find an interesting article in the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal and you send it to somebody under the age of 50, chances are you're going to get back TLDR, too long didn't read. People don't read articles anymore. They just want the headlines, the clickbait on Twitter and social media. People don't want to pay attention to a great defensive baseball game or a pitcher's duel. They want to see home runs. They want to see high-scoring games, three-pointers in the NBA. But I don't know. Are those the real fans? I mean, shouldn't a true fan be able to watch a 2-1 baseball game and be quite satisfied that two great pitchers dueled it out?
Especially when we're on the under.
I guess that would make it more enjoyable, wouldn't it?
Yeah, right. No, you're right, Jesse. Listen, the attention span, the too long don't read. Yeah. Well, and there's people who are not that way. People that way, and there's people that way for good reason. Maybe they don't have time, but for the most part, if you send me something and you're important in my life, I'm going to take time to read it.
Yeah, it started. I think it all started really with the advent of Cliff Notes. Instead of reading Homer and the Iliad like you're supposed to do, all of a sudden there was
guilty.
a quick way to get the Cliff Notes and read it.
I'm guilty of that though, so it's hard for me to admonish. I'm guilty of that in college, but that was for other reasons that were at that time very important. That was like girls and partying and stuff like that. I didn't have time to read a book.
I understand.
Yeah.
But I was in a high school where we did read books like that. Back in the day, it was Brave New World, 1984, Animal Farm, Catcher in the Rye, Homer and the Iliad, all the Shakespeare stuff.
I read some of those. I will say that I'm not horrible. I'm well read. What's that, Jesse?
I said now's a great time for people to go back and reread some of those books.
Yeah, Catcher in the Rye. I like that. Was one of my favorites.
It's tremendous.
Yeah,
tremendous. And you have Beowulf. Plutarch and the Lives of the Ancient Romans. Plutarch was a Roman historian.
Yeah.
Ptolemy, all that crap. The Cliff Notes don't do it justice. Sometimes you have to read, and you have to take a second now to digitally look up a word so you understand what the heck it means. And that's another thing I think we disconnected our society from. Like, why bother? It takes too much time. It's not going to make me $1 million, so why should I do it?
The Grapes of Wrath.
I got a sub. Oh, Grapes of Wrath, tremendous. Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. The Ides of March, all that stuff. So the one thing I wanted to mention is the one problem that they cannot fix in baseball and all the 4 majors that you mentioned is that you can't have a coach or a manager getting paid 5% of what the leader or the captain of the team is making. They have no leverage. There's no leverage whatsoever. And if that quarterback, as we're seeing in Green Bay play out, doesn't want to do something, it ain't going to be done. And, whether you like Belichick or not, I think he's the exception, and the Patriots are the exception to what that epidemic is. That he was the boss, and it didn't matter, and Brady bought into it, so therefore the two of them combined were basically the boss. And Kraft was, again, another example of an exception to the rule in ownership, unlike Snyder down in Washington with the football team, where he has destroyed any chance of that team ever making the playoffs in those seasons where they should have made the playoffs. Kraft managed the organization and allowed his employees to do their job, and I think that's why they have as many rings as they have. But
it helps. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it really helps to have that balance, and they were fortunate that Brady bought in and Bill. Listen, let's not. Well, I'll mention it many times. The Patriots were never, ever shy of letting some big name guys go simply because they were wanting too much money. They had a different philosophy on how to operate a team, and they knew the consequences of paying a player $500 million and football is a little different, but a bunch of that money's guaranteed for Mahomes, already has been. I mean, this is a 25-year-old that has barely got 3 seasons of professional football, and he's now part owner of the Kansas City Royals. He bought a percentage of the Kansas City Royals. That's how much money he's got. It's amazing. If it's unfathomable for me. I would never have that kind of money because I would never, even if I had the wherewithal to earn that money or steal that money, I would have given it away. I think that's what you do. You give it away. I only need so much. Pacifico's kind of expensive, but I splurged today.
It sounds like a Ford car. A Pacifico Ford or Ford Pacifico. July is the month of it's the immigrants all visit the Finn household, and we have all kinds of different kinds of vodka, all different kinds of beer, and
American. My grandfather was. If you brought anything that had Kentucky on the label, you were his friend for life. It could have been Old Crow. It could have been Kentucky, and it was. He didn't care if it said Kentucky, brother. You were his friend.
That's
this is a stone cold. This is a stone cold white army soldier that served the czars. That's and escaped after Stalin took over. He was a vodka drinking. My grandma had to lock that liquor cabinet up as he got older because he liked to drink, and it wasn't when he was, and he lived to be a ripe old man. And but Kentucky, if it said Kentucky, guys, it was funny. All-Star Wrestling, and if it said Kentucky on the label, if you talked to him about All-Star Wrestling, and he spoke very little English, pathetic English, you were his friend. And it was fun to watch, and it was actually fun to take part in because if you told him that All-Star Wrestling was not real, he was probably going to bust you in your mouth. That's how passionate he was about that and anything that said Kentucky on it. Alcohol related, of course.
Yeah, it's so. Pacifico is a vodka.
No, it's a Mexican beer. It's a Mexican beer.
Like Corona.
Honest to God,
Corona's Pacifico's more of a local. You don't find Pacifico, although it's one of the more. It's been taken over by a U.S. marketing company. Much like Corona was. When I used to go to Mexico, here we go again talking about old am. When I went to Mexico, I would go to those border towns. We couldn't afford to on spring break. We couldn't afford to go to Boca Raton. We couldn't afford to go to Daytona, stuff like that. I was a ghetto boy. And we would go down across the border, and we would get this before Corona was imported. 80 cents for a 6-pack of Corona, but the liquor store had no refrigeration, so they'd give you a plastic sack with ice surrounding your 6 Coronas in the little short bottles about this big, guys. And we had a saying. It was spring break, and it was Corona time because 80 cents and street tacos that were dirt cheap. We'd lived we just stayed there for a week on the beach, and things change. Bob Dylan said, "Times are changing." I just heard Bob bark. There's
what's
Bob
that?
barking. Bob's barking, not Bob Barker, but Bob's barking back there. I hear you.
I got something to add to the talk of the power struggle between the players and the coaches.
Yeah, let's hear it.
In the 4 leagues, I think hockey is a bit of a different animal. I think it's a lot less fashionable for the star players to take control of a team and speak out against the coach and the management. It might happen from time to time, but it's not nearly as fashionable. It's not celebrated by the media as much, specifically in Canada. I mean, we tend to treat the coaches with put them up a little bit on a pedestal, and they get a little bit more respect. The player is never greater than the team, so to speak.
Oh, I agree with that.
Yep.
Oh, I agree.
Yep.
I mean, hockey's and hockey's no dummy. I mean, that league, it's pretty here in Vegas. One of the things we always talk about was like, wow, I got to take a second mortgage out on the house today. And someone say, why? Because I'm going to go see the Knights play, and it's damn expensive to go see the Knights play. Hockey tickets were always it's not cheap. It's not cheap because they pay their players well, they pay the coaches well, and good. Because we don't have to go to every hockey game. There's nobody on
that Knights team that's greater than the team. Who on the Knights could speak out and say, I'm the
They'll
greatest,
be traded.
You're going to have to listen to me.
I'll tell you who did that. I'll tell you who did it. And Fleury got a little flustered, when they brought in another goalie. And when he spoke out, I'll tell you what happened. He was sent home. He's not great, and he was basically the local guy people piggybacked and loved and talked about, because he had such a really good first season when they were the expansion and went to the finals. Fleury was that guy that had that season. So, but yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Fleury spoke out about that, did it on Twitter and did it in some social media, and he paid a little price for it because they were not going to be the team that accepted such. They didn't want to be that. They didn't want to be that precedent, you know.
Yeah.
No, I think it's definitely not a fashionable way to be in hockey. No. I mean, if you come out and you start getting your ego gets too big, you get shut down pretty quick by the fans, the media, the players,
or the game. The game in our business, as soon as you start telling people how good you are, you're going to pay that price. I promise you. You're going to pay the price, some way, fashion, or form.
You guys might remember Evander Kane when he was a rookie. He had a big stack of $100 bills, and he was putting pictures of himself on Instagram with $100 bills. And some of the veterans pulled him aside and said, this just doesn't fly in hockey, guy. You're going to have to cool that off a little bit.
That's good. I think that's,
Yeah,
I think humility is a pretty attractive. When you're a humble person, it's pretty attractive in my world. Not that I am. I think I am, but especially as far as the people I know, when they're humble, they're the ones I gravitate towards more than the flamboyant ones.
Well, and it's pretty tough to win a championship just because you have one player as well. You can't really put your finger on one player that's going to win you the championship. It's not like basketball or even baseball. A starting pitcher can be so dominant; you can win you so many games.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, no. You got to score.
The Edmonton Oilers have probably the best player, if not, top 3 player in the league, and it hasn't done them much good.
No, his name wasn't Gretzky.
Connor McDavid, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm saying it's not like a Gretzky. But because listen, people talk about Gretzky all the time, but as well as better than anyone here speaking, probably. Gretzky had some pretty damn good teammates, some pretty good players too, alongside of him that made him. He was a product, a part of who he was or who he is known to be, was because of some of the guys that assisted him, and there were some good players.
I would also add that Gretzky was notorious for making his teammates better.
Oh, I
rather
agree.
Rather than him dominating on his own.
Yeah.
His success was due to setting up his teammates to score 70 goals. Guys like Bernie Nichols playing for LA, who a rather average player gets on a line with Gretzky and scores 70 goals. That he did that for so many people.
We could have a show on that. I mean, there's players in there's running backs in particular. There's some running backs in NFL history that are glorified, but they truthfully were average running backs in college, and they were products of their offensive line who get very little glory, And I'll just say it. Priest Holmes was a backup running back at Texas. Baltimore traded him away. He got behind, in my opinion, the best offensive line in the history of football. That line with that Dick Vermeil had with Kansas City Chiefs, and Priest Holmes had a couple 3 amazing seasons, in that offense too that Kansas City ran at that time. But he was a product of just an offensive line that were the Hogs. They were the old Redskins when Riggins was. They were the current that at least in the last 10 years. The Hogs, they were good.
Yeah, they sure were.
Yeah.
Well, we got a big shout out to Mr. McGinnis in the chat room. He's been with us just about every single day that I can remember.
Wow.
And I asked him if he wanted us to break down a game before we adjourned for the evening, and he asked about the Padres. So I thought we'd tee up a little look at the Padres here. The Friars, as I like to call them, are 56-42, 14 games over 500. Trail San Francisco by 5 games, who is playing the Dodgers tonight in the second game of their series. San Francisco was leading, I think, by 5 runs and lost. And San Diego is going to be playing. I'm pulling up the San Diego is playing. Why don't I see this game?
Is he just? They're playing that. They've already finished one. They
already finished. Yeah. I guess he wants to.
No, it's a doubleheader today.
Okay, so 7-inning game was won by
3-2.
San Diego 3-2. Mm-hmm. And with the second game here, Looks like I'm not familiar with this starter at all. Nair, Knehr, and Atlanta is putting Wilson on the hill, and the line is minus 120 in favor of Atlanta for this second game. A lot of doubleheaders are split, but it's certainly not something to count on and bet on. But I don't know anything about this Nair guy. Tony, do you or Jesse know anything about him?
Reese Nair, who's going to start
Reese Nair.
Yeah. Listen, this is not a guy who's a top prospect. This is not a guy who gets a lot of accolades. Everyone would have heard of him. Yeah. I'm certain that somebody's. I just got something in my ear there, so no big deal. Long story short, is that there's good reason why Atlanta's a favorite here for lots of reasons. Public perception of who Nair is. It's not like he was a Strasburg or one of the other guys that's come up and been a favorite from almost from out of the gate. But here's the deal: the Padres, when they hit the ball, they're pretty tough. They haven't been great against left-handed pitching last couple years, but their bullpen's healthy, guys, and our faithful that's in the audience wanting to know. They do. I'll tell you this much: at the break, I do a couple articles, and I do a lot of work recharting. And of the three teams in that division, the NL West, the Padres probably have the toughest schedule that's left of the three, with LA having the easiest, in truth, of the three. Tonight's, I think, listen, it's late July. We still have August. We still have September. But I'm really interested in watching, not that I'm not interested in watching the Padres, but I'm really interested in this San Francisco and LA game tonight because it's a big game. We got a Webb against a Urias that, while Urias isn't a household name, neither is Webb. And in fact, Webb probably wasn't even expected to be in a starting rotation this year, even if it was a Cleveland, or even if it was the Detroit Tigers or somebody like that. So it's a big game, I think, as far as how San Francisco enters the last couple months of the season and how they feel about, how they can compete. But when San Diego, I don't think there's any problem. I think San Diego's well coached. I think they have a couple guys on that team. They have guys that have won World Series. Guys that aren't really having great years. And the first base, there's a couple guys there, ex-Royal, that won a World Series that we talked about in 2015 and got paid pretty well because of what he was able to do with that team, on that team. But this team's well-rounded. San Diego, if they can keep their pitching staff healthy, they're going to be they may be an aberration. It's possible, right, guys? That whoever wins that division, the other two are the wild cards. It's possible.
Yep.
So tonight's game, it's a coin flip for me, Mr. McGinnis. It's a coin flip. I'm not on it. I stayed away from it because, not so much because of San Diego, because of Atlanta. I think Atlanta. At this point, I liked Atlanta to win this division, the NL East. And now I'm concerned with Atlanta. They have not been above 500 all year. Look at their futures. They're still considered alive and well in this NL East, and probably for good reason. But they're missing part of their heart on that team with Acuna out for the rest of the year, and they're not getting Fried's curveball doesn't have the rotation that it had, and I guess we've talked about that a little bit. Probably part of that's due to the tack that he's not using now than he was using. So things have changed, and adjustments. How we do for our clients and for our bank accounts for the rest of the season is how much attention we're going to pay to what pitchers aren't doing, what hitters aren't doing, what matchups we have that are going to be favorable for us, and ones that we may fall victim to because we are still using metrics that may not apply today that applied yesterday. So,
what do you think about the idea? And I tossed this around in my head, and with Atlanta, Ian Anderson's out, As you said, Acuna's out. Ian Anderson probably comes back. But what about the idea that Freeman becomes a rental for like a team like the Padres?
Here's the problem I have with that, John. I'm just going to interrupt you and say, I've seen it happen many times before, but there's something about Freeman, and there's something about Atlanta. There's something about George Brett in Kansas City. There's something about certain players and certain teams that no matter what somebody's going to offer you for their services, that they're just not for sale. And I don't know why I feel that way about Freeman. That's the way I feel about him. I could be dead wrong. So what do I know? I'm not sure.
That makes total sense. You can go back into history too. Jack Schmidt or Mike Schmidt.
Yes.
I mean, Jack Schmidt.
Yes.
Mike Schmidt.
Right.
There's been a lot of players that have spent their whole entire careers on one team, and then it
Doesn't happen much anymore, does it? Not much,
Nope.
but
Nope.
yeah.
Nope. That Tom Brady guy, I guess.
And it didn't happen with
So-
Tom Brady, did it?
Well, he's in his second career now. I'd say he's going to be with the same team twice in the same career.
Well, listen, he may not be human. It's becoming more and more obvious that he may not be. He may have some alien DNA or something that allows him to play till he's 80. Who knows?
Yeah, I heard too that Fitzpatrick, the quarterback, Harvard,
Yes.
spent all summer with the Brady organization. It's called TB12, which is all about nutrition, all about workouts,
Yeah.
discipline, focus,
Yeah.
mind body stuff. I mean, it's really pretty cool. I actually have the app on my phone.
Oh,
And,
well, it's
although I-
not anywhere near my phone. It never will be, because that would mean I would have to change everything.
Well, I'm not saying I would change anything with my life either, but it's kind of interesting to see what
To follow.
other people are doing, and
Yeah, kind of.
But I do try some of the stuff, I'm still pretty athletic in my
Well, do they have
second
any
half.
recreational? Do they have any recreational drugs or new alcoholic beverages that they're sampling on that app? Because I'll join in for those.
I'll double check, because some of them they might be using
to
different.
be part of the survey on that.
They might be using different terminology, so I'll have to.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'll have to dig into it and see.
People are more politically correct than me. I know.
But in this Atlanta-San Diego second game, I kind of look right now at San Diego as a play. There's a couple pretty solid angles here, playing on road teams with an on-base percentage of 350 or more over the last 20 games, and having a pitcher that has more than 5 days of rest. 48-19, 72%, last 5 seasons. $100 better has made $3,200 this following those parameters.
Right.
And I also like the fact that San Diego is batting, 288? Let's see here. Last 7 games, 6.7 runs per game, 288 batting average, 369 OBP, including 31 walks, which means that they are working counts. Unlike the Yankees, and only left 47 men on base during this run.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that number's pretty good too.
Nair. Well, I will say this: Nair did start one game. It was against the Rockies, and it was in San Diego. And here's the deal: he walked 4 and struck out 3. Rockies, all right, gave up 3 hits, 2 earned runs in 3.2 innings. 76 pitches to get through 3.2. So, like most young pitchers, their biggest Achilles, or at least the most common denominator among young pitchers, is command. So.
Yep. And then, of course, they could have an umpire behind the plate that knows he's
Correct.
a rookie, and that strike zone gets tight.
Yep.
And I don't think that's right either. That's another thing with these umpires that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know something? Some of them do this. It's not the way it used to be. At least the union, there's still a large contingent of vets who are basically grandfathered in. They're tenured. They can't be fired because they grade poorly in the K zone, Like the young ones they're basically, that's how they're graded. Some of the older guys, some of them are proud guys, and they do the best they can, or at least they try to comply with what the league wants and the union wants. But there are guys that don't. And And there were guys 10 years. I wrote a book in the late 90s. It wasn't a book, but it was a little short story. Let's call it a short story on umpires. Back then, this is before the K-zones. And I was a big umpire guy. Not a lot of guys were. I was a big umpire guy because they had a huge impact on the game that typically was not accounted for, not in the money lines or when the public was addressing who they were going to back that night. They just didn't. There were sharp syndicate groups that knew umpires inside and out. But the discrepancy, the dichotomy between sizes of strike zones in the late 80s and 90s, early 90s was unbelievable. It was stuff movies made of. That's how drastic it was.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. So I guess we'll, Jesse, you agree that the play is San Diego, or are you a pass?
How do you like about that game, Jesse?
Well, I do have a free player prop bet I want to give out here, but
okay.
Just quickly on the San Diego, I tend to agree with you. I think San Diego is a play. I looked at Bryce Wilson's numbers. 3 of his last 4 starts were losses. The one good one was against the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'm not sure that his numbers would justify him being a favorite against a superior San Diego team. So I would lean toward San Diego.
Well, I think that's a good play. I like that. I agree.
But for the player prop, I'm looking at Vlad Jr. tonight. The Blue Jays are playing at home against Boston. Vlad Jr., he's got 3 homers in his last 4 games. Garrett Richards is going for Boston. Vlad's 5 for 7 lifetime against Richards with 3 doubles. Vlad is batting .436 against Boston this year, and they've played a bunch of times already.
Yeah.
And Vlad is hitting .363 at home. So I like a total bases bet for the over on Vlad Jr. tonight.
I like Toronto tonight, big time, but I don't like the price. I'm not laying 200, so I don't care if Nolan Ryan's pitching. I'm not laying that, but I agree with you. If the Rays can pitch, let's just say it right now, if the Jays can pitch between now and October, they have a chance in that division. They have a chance. I have no doubts they can catch Boston. I believe Boston's going to slowly pitch themselves out of that division. I think the Rays are the team to beat, but the Jays can sure hit the ball. They're young. They're young.
They need to make some moves.
Yeah, we'll see. That's coming up very shortly. We'll see.
They have a history of doing some pretty wild things at the deadline. That's for sure.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, it's all good. I guess we'll do the round the horn here for the final bets. We'll let Jesse use his player prop for that purpose. So what I would like to do first is mention the golf shows that I did today. I usually have David Behrman from ESPN on Tuesdays at 1. Due to scheduling, we had him on this morning at 10:30. And we also had Nick Borman from WagerTalk on. 2 guys that are just scorching hot. In 8 shows that Nick has been on, he's 8 for 8, and he went 5-0 in his matchups that he presented last week. And David Behrman, of 16 shows that he's been on, 14 out of 16 have been winning weeks, winning events. And this past week was just probably the best yet at the Open Championship. One of his DraftKings lineups made it as high as 54th out of more than 300,000 entries, and finished. I believe it was in the below 300th. But when you're in that section of the leaderboard, that's a lot of money still coming your way. So this week at the 3M Open, which is in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, we have Tony Finau. Is one of Behrman's big guys that he thinks is really going to do well, and it's kind of a guy that it'd be like hearing Tony Finn say that he loves Major League Baseball owners. So Tony Finau is a great golfer, great guy. but has not been reliable when you want to
Finished
make
second.
money on him.
He finished second.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for him to pick him is kind of unusual, but at 14-1 to win and a top 10 finish at plus 125, I can see why he likes it, because this field is a little bit diluted now after the Open. A lot of guys take this week off for obvious reasons. Dustin Johnson is in the event, and I will mention this. On the first day of the Open, Jon Rahm was the pre-tournament favorite at 7.5 to 1 or even 7 to 1. And he started out slow. And it wasn't a disaster. It's just that he started out slow. He was, I guess, two over at one point through 7 holes. I pulled up his live odds. I got him at 35 to 1. And again, pizza money. It didn't win. But the point is that if you like Dustin Johnson or Oosthuizen this week, it probably pays to wait and see how that front 9 goes, because a lot of times these guys that are the favorites just get out of the chute to just not shoot over par.
What's the odds on Dustin Johnson right now? What's the odds?
7.5 to 1.
Okay, let me ask you this. Let's say Dustin Johnson went out and he birdied the first 6 holes, and through 6, he's 600 par. What's his odds then, live?
4 to 1.
Okay, then I would agree with you. I mean, I don't know enough about golf and how those. That's early, when you're only through 6 holes of what's going to be a 36 hole or
72
hole tournament. Then they're probably not going to overreact to be a guy at 600, because one triple erases half of that.
Yep.
So that said, that's always my fear of. I have to assess that, and that is. A lot of times guys will say, listen, wait till in-game live and wait till their opponent, has an early lead or takes the lead, and then get them, you'll get a little better. What if they never, I always say to them, and if they never get the lead, then I'm out, even though I've liked them a lot. So that's one of those. But in this situation, I wouldn't argue. I mean, a difference between, 7 to 1. There's a difference. There's always a difference. It's 7 to 1,
Right.
4 to 1. But I guess it would, if Dustin gets out to a 600 start, I'm going to guess he's probably not juiced up. People aren't concerned with him being juiced.
He played well in the Open.
Yeah.
I took him as a contrarian play, quite frankly, because everybody was so against him.
Yeah.
But he played well. I don't know if it was top 10, but it was well. And steady, and
Yeah.
no reason to think that he won't take this course by storm too. It's a bomber's delight, quite frankly.
Well, then what wins it? 25 under?
Well, last year was 19 under,
you
so
go.
I did
Okay.
I did say on the show 20 and above. Weather's supposed to be very good. It is a link style course, but we're not playing in Sandwich, England. There's a big difference between real link style and what's here in the U.S.
Yeah, wind and rough.
Yep. There is a hole that it's on I think it's on the back 9 too. Let me see if I still have that page open, because it's pretty. If you're going to watch a little bit of the golf, this is the hole that you want to really watch. Oh, it's hole number 7, and this course was designed by Tom Lehman. And if you don't know that name, he was a tour pro and plays occasionally on the senior tour. He's also in the Golf Hall of Fame. And this is a 381-yard par 4 that can be driven by driving over the lake that's on the left side of the hole. So if you can carry it far enough, you can actually drive the green with like a 330-yard shot. So I think, in this day and age of all the guys, a short hitter now is considered under 300. Or, he only hits 300. It's crazy language. But I think you'll see a lot of the field take a shot at this hole and go for the 2, which would be the eagle. This hole is dubbed Tom's Thumb, and that's in reference to Tom Lehman. So I like these little stories. Not everybody does. But I like the stories behind the holes and why they're called certain things. And, Augusta is named after just about every single flower that is on the course. But, holes 6, 7, 9, and 14 are going to be the holes that will be fun to watch, and probably whoever plays those 4 holes the best is going to win it.
Yeah.
Cameron Chingali was another pick between the two of them. Nick likes Patrick Reed. I actually like him too. My models were all over him. A guy named Laviata, Jonathan Vegas, who you have to like that name, Jesse and Tony. I mean, any guy named Vegas has to be in a lineup.
Yeah.
And then Patrick Rogers rounds out the field. So those are the names that I think, for people listening and you want to do your DFS, then you start with those names and then you can build from there. Some of these are going to be pretty cheap in that $7,000 to $8,000 range, and that gives you a chance then to take the more expensive golfers like a Patrick Reed will be. But that's my take on the 3M Open. So my personal pick is going to be I can't decide between the two. I'll give out two. A name that you probably haven't heard in a long time, Charles Howell III. And I know, Tony, we're not talking about Gilligan's Island. This is a guy that plays on the PGA Tour. And
I know of him.
Just a cut machine. Cut machine. So I think he's an excellent choice for the DFS, and also, for top 20, top 10. And I would not plan him to win, but why not sprinkle a pizza money bet on it just in case he does? And then Cameron Tringali, I like quite a bit, both top 20, top 10, and a little sprinkle to win. So that is it for me for free picks, and I will pass it over to you, Tony, and see what you got.
I'm just going to make it quick.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a strikeout prop, and I'm going to check the numbers on right now and make sure that this has not gotten out of control as far as juice goes. But tonight's game between the Giants and the Dodgers, the late pitch, West Coast, Chavez Ravine event, pits a couple pitchers who are household names, Urias and Webb. And the umpire in this game is definitely a K-boost umpire. Strikeouts are something. In fact, of active umpires with 200 more home plate assignments, the umpire that's behind the plate tonight has one of the highest K-boosts or strikeouts percentages to base on balls percentages. And there's certain metrics of umpires I use that are important to me that may not register with other people. But I like both pitchers to exceed their strikeout props. Urias was 6.5. He was 5.5 earlier. Okay, he was over 5.5, but it was minus 170. And now I see that they've changed it to, and I'm using Penny, which I trust more than in most books. And now it's 6.5 at plus money, plus 120. So, but this morning I made the switch and I went over to Webb, who was over 4.5 at plus money. And the reason, first off, he's not the same kind of strikeout that Urias. However, he has a pretty good history against this lineup for the Dodgers. And the biggest question tonight is he's had 2 starts since coming back from being on the IL. And he only pitched 3 and then 4 innings. But he's not on limit tonight, according to my information, 100 pitches. So over 4.5 plus money. Over 4.5 plus 114 right now for Logan Webb. Total strikeouts. Must start, obviously. Over 4.5 strikeouts plus 114. That's my complimentary free money.
I got a lot. And Urias, too, is plus money, although a higher number.
Right. And listen, when I saw the 5.5 on Urias, I wanted to jump it big. Then I looked over to see what I was going to be laying, and I saw the 170, and I said, forget it. I'm just not doing that on a prop. I'm not doing that on a team. Why am I going to do it on a prop? So, I mean, although I did recommend yesterday minus 600 on the Freak and a double-double, I said it's free money if you want to lay the 600, Yeah.
I'm seeing him actually at 6.5 for Urias at plus 110.
Right. I'm seeing 6.5 at one night plus 119, and I still like that. He struck out 10 of Giants in his best start. 2 starts against the Giants this year. One was real good, one wasn't so good. But he He walked none and struck out 10 in his first outing against this Giants team. So there you go.
And one last question for you before I let you guys go. Along this line of Julio Urias and the prop bets in general,
Yeah.
do you feel over time of making these prop bets, is it better to take over 5.5 and lay the wood? Or is it better to say, you know what, I got this umpire behind the plate, and if I'm right, Urias is going to have at least 8 strikeouts, and you take the higher number, but you get the plus juice?
Well, I'm going to be boring. I'll answer this now. I'll let Jesus, our best Jesse, answer this. But I'll be boring. I'll tell you right now. I avoid those kind of juice plays. I don't avoid plus 150 or plus 160. However, when I see plus 150 or plus 160 at a book like Penny, who handles a lot of sharp action, this is a sharp book. There's no square book, you know. Then I have to back off of it and find out why is it such plus money, you see.
Yep.
So, but I typically say there's going to be plenty of opportunities during the course of a 162 game season or 1 million baseball games. There'll be plenty of opportunity to get a prop that's favorable for you on the money line and the number, and I would just say stay away. That would be my answer.
Okay. Jesse, you have anything to add to that?
I mean, I think you just got to look at a risk analysis for each time something like this comes about. But for Urias, for example, with 5.5 strikeouts, I would assess his last 20 starts. How many of those did he go over 5.5 strikeouts? If you're looking at something like 70% of the time, that might justify laying 170. If it's only 55% of the time, well, it clearly doesn't justify laying 170. It's that simple, right?
Yep.
And now they've just raised it with strikeout. Like I said, now it's 6.5 plus 119 at Penny. So then, as Jesse said, how many times has he been above 6.5? Is he going to be efficient? A lot of this has to do with efficiency. When is he going to be at 100 pitches, right? In this day and age of load management, if he's facing a lineup that walks a lot, not that the Giants walk a lot, but if it's a pitcher's facing a lineup that walks a lot or doesn't strike out a lot or puts a lot works counts, it's surprising as poor as the Yankees have played and hit this year. They're the second. They work pitchers at a rate that's second to none or second to one in Major League Baseball. Yet they just don't. They haven't been fortunate with the BIP with the balls hit in play. So.
Real quick, you asked about Urias' strikeouts.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go, these are starts that going in order of the most recent. So strikeouts, 3, 9, 3, 12, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 10, 8, 6, 4, 10.
First off, though, you didn't say, are all those 6 innings or more?
That I don't know because he did go 7 innings at Miami against Alcantara and had 9 strikeouts. Right. That was 2 starts ago.
He did strike out. You have a 10 in there, right? That 10 was against the San Francisco team, and I think he had an 8.
Yes, it was
against the San Francisco team. I think it was 8 and 10, the 2 starts. I may be mistaken, but I know 10 was
against Webb back on May 29th. Right. He had 5 strikeouts, 2 walks, allowed 11 hits, 6 runs.
He struck out. Listen, Webb has a pretty good history against this, although albeit small sample, against the Dodgers. Urias, 1 at bat, 1 strikeout. So there you go.
Well, that's a good way to end the show, I think, on that note. So I want to thank both you guys for your time. And I've been running the promo code down there for Jesse to get $100 off his early bird football special. And I don't think this is just an early bird special. I mean, these are not going to be out there forever.
They're not.
And they are real deals. And you're not going to see this deal after it's removed. Yes. And you're going to have to pay the regular price. And I can't emphasize that enough. So I'm not trying to get you to buy it now because it's going to be another special down the road that's even cheaper, because it's not going to be cheaper than this. This is the rock bottom price to get Jesse's football package, and I highly recommend you go do it sooner rather than later, because if you're like me, you'll forget to do it, and then the price goes up.
And I'll say this: if you mention that Tony Finn sent you, I'm quite certain they will give you another $5 off that 100. That's about
And
all.
if you
though.
mention that F and Tony sent you, you're going to get 10%.
Yeah, that's good for another 100, I think.
Yeah.
Especially if you actually say it.
Well, it may cost you more, so be careful.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. So for Tony Finn, Jesse Scholl, myself, the Predictive Playbook, WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com. May all the wins be yours.